All right, welcome everybody. Today we are looking through some ideas on Trello. Really, I should say problems, and then we're going to come up with some ideas. Going to add to our list here. As always, we're using Obsidian to connect all ideas and keep track of them. So we're going to start with the problem that money is intangible. And this one we've been thinking on for a long time. And we haven't actually tried any of these solutions, have we?
No, not really. Um, the closest thing we've tried is um, the calendar with our spending,
Yeah, that's
which
true.
is sort of touches on this, but I think the intent of this is to make it really tangible. Some of the ideas that are up there, um, like Legos, where you get to, as you build wealth, you build this Lego, set or an advent calendar type thing.
Yeah, and I think Raz like playing music, representing the state of front. Like these are a thermometer. Um,
Oh, that
yeah,
link
these.
the link your bank account to your thermometer in the house. That that really make
Ah,
you save.
and every time it is bad, you like make a bad decision. It gets cold.
Yeah, yeah, or it in the winter it bumps the heat down, and in summer it bumps the AC down.
That'd be brutal. Oh
Maybe
man,
effective.
probably. I'm guessing. Yeah, it's definitely though given. I think the challenge here is to not make it a punishment.
Hmm.
So, like, I guess I want to say, so like, when bad financial decisions are made, the heat of the home changes, and then I think we'd have to be careful because of punished by rewards. One of our favorites. Yeah.
I think one of the big problems with this one is we are so quick to want rewards,
Mm.
and like so when you build something and you finish, you're done, and that's great, but you don't um you don't build healthy financial habits overnight, or even, I think the longest thing we have up there is
Mm.
an advent calendar, and that's for a month,
Yeah.
when really we want something to go on for years.
I wonder, yeah, like this would be interesting, like replaying your month with Monopoly money,
Hmm.
like at the end of each month.
What do you
Like
think the purpose of that is?
just to like, so like basically you just take out a bunch of Monopoly money, you sit down with all your transactions and you just count out, okay, what did I buy? Okay, I bought a sandwich. Like, okay, that was
Mm,
$7 or whatever. And just
yeah, yeah. So sort of force people to walk through their purchase habits again with a tangible, your monopoly money being tangible, and then the with the hope that eventually that reflection would lead to a positive feedback loop.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like that.
I think I don't know if we have it on here, but we have um like the envelope method with colored like debit cards. It's like each card has a set amount of money for a set budget category.
Mhm.
I think that would be a blast. I would love to have like, and just be able to move it around. Like the bank I have, Allied, like lets you have buckets in your savings account where you can put money into,
Mhm.
and they're all still in one savings account, but it just like subdivides it, like partitions it. It'd be so much fun to do that with a debit card. Just have, you know, X different checking accounts, and each one gets its own color. So
Mhm.
you just fund those individually. Yeah.
Yeah, and then one of the questions I want to highlight is money is such an individual thing in our society. How can we make this a communal event? And would that help?
That'd be interesting. Like, what if um your friends have to approve your purchases? Like it's set up through your bank. So like if I were to buy something, I have to get Neil's approval or someone's approval, you know.
Yeah. Or even like the replaying of the month with Monopoly money, have that be a group
Oh
activity.
yeah. Huh. I wonder about connections here. Do we have other ideas that we can link this to?
It's been a while since doing this, so I'm
Hmm. I don't know if we have. This is kind of a different one than the rest.
Mhm. Oh, do we want to connect this one to the calendar?
I don't know if do we have that in there? What was the problem in that one?
Um, oh, it's hard to identify items you don't need. This links with that, like especially the
Yeah, our solutions to that were very physical.
yep. Well,
Um,
and the Monopoly money would be a feedback to that. Also um, the app we made. And we can link it to physical products.
let's see. Undo. Hmm. Yeah, let's add, yeah, we should add physical product though. I don't know what the app though does. I don't know.
What it's called.
Budgets are hard to visualize.
Yep.
There we go. All right, I'm good with that one if you're good with it.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, it's fun to do this again. It's been about a month for us, I think.
Yep.
I've been in Los Angeles. You maybe that was that it? Was that the only reason? I
Yeah, it was
think so.
trying to figure out how to get momentum when yeah, Jimmy was on the other side of the country.
It's not always super easy.
Oh,
Different time zone. All right. Oh, okay. So a Slack bot that aggregates messages. Huh. Oh, interesting. Okay. And then a Slack bot that aggregates messages. I'm trying to think of what this means. So this article, War on Developer Productivity. Oh, I think what I mean is like batch delivery.
Oh, yeah.
Like basically, like Slack doesn't know what you're doing right now. So like, for example, if I'm, unless I am really, really explicit, like if I'm working on something, heads down, don't want to be disturbed, like it doesn't know that and it will alert me. Basically, the default in Slack is just to alert me as soon as someone sends a message.
Yeah.
Unless I like go through and really carefully mute certain channels and set myself to do not disturb, and which is fair, but I think it'd be interesting to be able to batch it to set times and fine tune those settings a little bit. Because I don't know, let me, I guess I probably can't share what is on my work Slack, but I guess it's kind of the idea that, yeah, that it has no idea what you're doing and just kind of taps you. Like, whereas if I'm at work, you could like, if we're in person, you can kind of like look and see what I'm doing and check what's going on and then decide to disturb me or not. But Slack is just like, yeah.
Well, and then I think there's something similar, but for sort of archival purposes, it'd be interesting if um, it had some AI that would group conversations. So
Mhm.
if it's like, oh, I had that conversation with Jimmy where we talked about elephants, and then it would collapse. It would identify all the chat that we were talking about elephants into a little, thing that I can expand. So then it's just much easier because it's like, okay, I scroll up and it's raccoons, giraffes, and then elephants instead of scrolling through all those back and forths.
Well, this reminds me like of Basecamp's Hey, where you can manually do that,
Mm-hmm.
like manually group conversations together.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot like, um, email. If you've got,
Exactly.
a chain of email, right? You can find that chain, but what if we had AI that did that?
Across channels. Because normally you're like talking to one person and on the side you're talking to another person. And
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's a good idea. I think too it'd be helpful to have private notes to like conversations. That's another thing I like about Hey is like, I'm working with a jeweler to get a ring for my girlfriend, and I was able to like add a private note to the email and just say, "Hey, here's like the design I'm thinking of,"
Mm-hmm.
without like emailing them, but it's like, and without having to dig it up later. Like basically, I'll just go to that email and be like, "Oh yeah, I have the design. I forgot about that." Yeah. So, all right.
Good stuff.
So I think we were actually, you sent me an email about something that does this a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So for a while, I've been getting these emails from Google Maps, and I never look into them. Um, but then I was kind of bored one day, and I actually went in, and it was actually really cool. Where it would show me all the places I'd been, and the tally of new places I'd been. Um, yeah, it was quite enjoyable.
I think the most powerful thing, I think like maps need to be more customizable in the sense that like there's so many things that like Apple Maps misses. I think they're working on it, like scenic route and whatever, but I wish they'd allow you to program your own maps a little bit so that would adapt more to you instead of being like this monolith across. And maybe it does already adapt to you, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like I really like the idea of it like tracking the routes you take most and then suggesting a new route like, hey, add 5 minutes, but see this cool thing like that you'd probably.
Yeah, I think when we operate on the small or walking scale, we have a tendency to take a little bit different routes every time, but once we get in a car, that tends to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think now with the technology, we could easily direct people to to interesting and alternate routes.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Like it'd be interesting if you could say, take me home from work, but take me the route that has the most restaurants on it.
yeah, yeah. No, I find it right now. I on my commute, there's um, some construction, and it's
Oh,
still slightly faster to take the highway than take some back roads.
yeah.
And I think it'd just be interesting, right? I could give up very little time in that situation, right? Give up like 2 minutes, but then I would be able to see something else.
Yeah. I just found maps don't allow you to customize the route. So,
Perfect.
all right. This one feels like it wouldn't be impossible to do because there's that Google Maps API out
Mhm.
there. I don't think it'd be too hard to pull that off.
I think that one would be an interesting one, maybe for an article. Maybe a little light, but
An article or a two-person app, private beta where we just try it.
yeah.
All right. I don't know if I have LinkedIn in here.
Yeah. So for this one, I've been thinking in a couple things like my contacts in my phone and LinkedIn is people are sticky in those situations. Once they enter, they very rarely leave. Um, whereas in normal life, once you meet someone, you forget about them unless they come up with some amount of repetition. And thinking, well, maybe that forgetfulness is a feature and not a bug.
Yeah. I think, yeah, there's a great like, I think there's like two layers here. Like the first layer is just saying like what connections are weak and strong. I think that'd be super interesting to see, you know? Like I
Mhm.
think the test is for this one, like review the LinkedIn API to see if this is possible, you know?
Mhm.
And then I think like the next level is then like pruning your connections. Like Slack has this thing where every 2 weeks it asks me, like, you haven't been active in this channel this month. Like, do you want to leave it? And it'd be like, you haven't talked to this person in 3 years. Do you want to stay connected to them? You know?
Mm.
But at the same time, yesterday I went through, I'm getting more and more curious about like product management. And you know, I made a connect or a request to, or I sent a message to John Boss, who I haven't talked to in like, you know, it's got to be like almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you know,
I
he's a
think
product manager. I was like, perfect. I'll check in with him. Yeah,
I think the scale is just we get caught up in thinking in, you know, year, like, I don't know, thinking in years, and really it should be decades. Or I guess it's proportional to the amount of time that you knew them, right? So for example, we were, you know, somewhat connected to John Boss for, you know,
that's
2 years.
true.
So the fact that it's been 5 years isn't
Doesn't, yeah.
crazy. It's, you know, I'm connected to people I met with once, and I just simply don't even remember who they are.
I was having that when I was looking through product managers that I'm connected to.
Yeah, so and maybe that would be part of the strength of connection, right? If at the beginning it's just you connect and that's it, versus, you know, you connect and over the course of 2 years you're, you know, pinging each other
Yeah.
and commenting on each other's posts and whatnot, then maybe the opposite response is true, and it prompts you instead of to
Oh,
unconnect with them,
yeah.
but to reconnect with them.
The biggest, a weird case or a worrying case is like someone who's like stalked you or a significant other that you're no longer with. That'd be a tough problem to solve.
Yeah,
Or even
certainly.
just like a friend breakup, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that would violate this metric pretty sure. It'd be like, hey, do you want to reconnect with this person? Are you sure? I'm sure like Facebook and Instagram probably do stuff like that. All right. Um, I'm surprised this is not a thing.
I think I've seen people try to do it.
But like DIY.
Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
So the problem is that bike signals are dangerous to make in that like having your arm out
Mm-hmm.
while you're biking is just not ideal, especially if you're on a road bike.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So Bluetooth connected vest with buttons on the handlebars.
So I think
Which, yeah.
there's two issues. One is either you go a wired route, in which case routing those cables is annoying. Or you go a wireless route, in which case you've got a battery problem.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it's wired, you would still need a battery if it's wired, right?
Yes, but you wouldn't. It could be a more set it and forget it if it was wired.
That's true.
Um,
You could also, I was thinking you could also predict when you're turning. You could have it auto predict. Pop on a signal. It'd be later,
yeah.
be delayed, but it could be an interesting way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder what the battery requirements for Bluetooth are. And could you power it with a dynamo?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you could probably power it by the bike itself. Yeah. Just siphon off a little. Well, I don't know. I don't know how much that would take from
Yeah, I
you.
don't know what the power requirements for
I'm trying.
Bluetooth are.
I can't imagine Bluetooth has that high of a power requirement. Because like all the Fitbits and Apple Watches aren't those.
Yeah, true.
Trying to think. And I just feel like I've seen a lot of low power Bluetooth stuff. But this would be fun to try. This is
Yeah,
a
this,
physical product.
yep.
This would be like a fun just build day,
Yep, for sure.
I want to see if there's any other bike related stuff. This reminds me like it could be integrated with this.
Yep.
Okay. You picked some good ones. Oh, this is gnarly. I think this is why it's so hard to legislate. I think some of it too is opportunity cost. It's hard to measure past not chosen. Like tech was made this way. And it's hard to change the idea. But I think DuckDuckGo does this a little bit. Like it has its ratings.
Oh.
Ooh. Like, let me see. See, this is a B plus. I think that's kind of an interesting
Wait, what is that going
off of.
off of?
It's going off of like how many trackers there are.
Okay.
So for example, if I like, okay, so if I go to mediums was started at a D because it has 3 separate trackers, unknown privacy practices. They haven't declared any of that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's like a start. What if you could have a Chrome extension that increases the like opacity of badly performing sites, like as if it's covered in smoke.
Yeah. Like if it's a great site, it would, be clear like it is now, but if it's a bad site, it would like terrible site, it'd be, black. And
Uh-huh.
you couldn't do anything on it. And if it was, that'd be really interesting.
I think Google is Goodreads. I want to look at Google though. Yeah, Google's a D. Poor privacy practices. So here's they actually have some reason. So they can use your content for all their existing and future services, tracks you on other website, logs are kept forever.
Yeah. Which is, this is DuckDuckGo's metrics.
Yeah.
But certainly if you're, all about that privacy, that I think there are different paths you could go.
Yeah.
It'd also be interesting to that same idea for user ratings, right? And just utilize user ratings as your metric.
What do you mean? Oh, by like crowdsource this?
Yeah. Yep. I don't know like how many ratings there are of like website, or I guess potentially like if you're going to an online retailer and if it's like, oh, I am trying to buy something from photographybulbs.com, I don't know if this is a good site. I don't know if there are crowdsourced ratings of those.
And then you'd have to police it,
Yeah.
It'd have to be like Yelp, where you can like say, come in as a company and say, hey, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had creating blacklists of users that have behaved badly on platforms. I don't know how useful that would be. I think that's a little bit mob mentality.
Yeah.
That's risky, but I'm sure that actually probably exists somewhere. But all right, we're coming up on the end of my time here. Let's see if we can snag one more.
Oh dear. Let's do no digital home. That one will be quicker, I think.
Yeah. Sidekick try. Oh, I was like, what in the world? So Sidekick is like, let me just pull Sidekick up. Like problem. I don't know if I still have it installed. I wonder if I don't know if I read an article about this. I don't remember what made me think of it. I think it might be that Sidekick like attempts to do this. So force quit. Sorry, Slack. Oh, so it's a web browser, but they try to make it like this is your home base. Like you have everything you need in one place. It's hilarious how Netflix is on my secret project. That just looks like you're screw on time. I don't know if I had Sidekick. Let's say Sidekick web browser tries to do this. Yeah, I wonder like technically I've seen people do this with Obsidian. And that could be effective. I mean, I kind of do this with like my startup ritual. Like basically I start, this is like my home base. At the start of the day, I say, okay, what do I need to do, all that stuff. Okay, cool. But I don't know. I feel like there's so few ways to customize your like desktop experience, you know,
Hmm.
like you can't alter the startup sequence. That'd be interesting, is maybe you just, while your computer's starting up, it asks you a series of questions, like, or before you get in, you get asked a series of questions.
Do you think phones do a better, like, phone operating systems do a better job than computer operating systems? I think they do. I think widgets plays a large part, right? What if every time you logged on or opened your computer, instead of opening to the most recent thing, it would just open you to your desktop, and then you could have your widgets all there.
Exactly. Like I would love that all this is hidden by default. Like if they opened up this in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd have your widget with email and your widget with, you know, that sports game that you're sort of following, that's there. And
This reminds me of the Mercury operating system. I don't think it's a thing yet, but basically it uses so like this is really stressful.
yep.
This is also very stressful, and the goal is, yeah, it's widgets. This is exactly what you're describing.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and with that, I'm at my time.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you for joining us, and Neil, I will see you later.